Item Number, SCP-081. Name, Spontaneous Combustion Virus. Object Class, Euclid. Description, SCP-081 is a contagious virus that appears to be a mutated version of the unknown virus, but with unknown segments in its RNA instead of unknown. The virus is human-specific, but is spread by rats who act as passive carriers. SCP-081 can also be spread through sexual intercourse and exposure to infected blood. SCP-081 infects adipocytes and leukocytes, inducing both to absorb nutrients at a vastly accelerated rate. As the nutrients are absorbed, infected B cells produce and secrete large quantities of a modified human antibody. Adipocytes expand and proliferate and the organism's caloric intake increases. When the concentration of adipose tissue reaches a critical point, the viral antibodies instigate systemic cell lysis, followed by an unknown process leading to the spontaneous combustion of the infected individual. There is a 1-week incubation period before initial symptoms begin to occur. The duration of the symptoms depends entirely on the body fat percentage of the infected. Infection proceeds through four distinct stages. Stage 1. During the first week there are no major symptoms, though subjects may report being slightly tired. Stage 2. In the second week of infection, subjects will begin to experience hot flashes and an increased appetite. Stage 3. Infected subjects demonstrate extreme polyphagia. They will do anything in their power to obtain food or anything edible. During this stage, metabolism slows down significantly and weight gain proceeds rapidly. There is no set time that will elapse before the fourth and final stage. In order for the virus to complete its life cycle, the victim must be composed of 55% body fat. Stage 4. Once the subject reaches 55% body fat, the urge to eat will stop, though subjects report increased instances of hot flashes. Soon afterward the body will go through an extremely violent version of widespread cell lysis. As cells burst, the modified antibodies catalyze the ignition of fatty compounds through unknown means. The body is incinerated from the inside out via the wick effect, with the additional fat serving as a fuel source. Because stage 4 is largely asymptomatic, subjects are never aware when combustion will occur and the exact timing is apparently random. Special Containment Procedures. Only those with Level 4 clearance and written permission from unknown may have access to SCP-081. Full hazard gear including suit, gloves, and an oxygen tank must be worn at all times when in the containment area. Suits must be sprayed with a disinfectant shower before leaving the containment area. If containment is breached, the entire area must be exposed to ultraviolet light and then bleached. Those who are suspected of being infected must be quarantined for at least 10 days. If no symptoms manifest after the 10th day, then quarantine can be lifted. Addendum 081-1, the first recorded incident of SCP-081 was reported in 1763 by Frenchman Jonas Dupont. In his book De Incendiis Corporis Humani Spontaneis, he wrote about a case in Paris where a man was acquitted of killing his wife as the jury agreed that the wife died due to spontaneous human combustion. It should be noted that the woman was incredibly overweight at the time of her death. It was not until the death of Mary Reeser on July 2, 1951 that SCP-081 was brought to the Foundation's attention. Despite the Foundation's best efforts, this information was leaked to the national media along with pictures of the incident. It is believed that most reported cases of spontaneous human combustion are caused by SCP-081. Addendum 081-2, SCP-081 is estimated to have existed since unknown date and thought to have originated in unknown. Because of widespread poverty and malnutrition present in many European countries at the time, instances of third and fourth stage infections were rare. North America has experienced the most cases of SCP-081 in the last century, but because of cleaner conditions and active rat population control, SCP-081 cases have dropped significantly. Fewer than unknown people a year die from late-stage SCP-081. Addendum 081-3, due to the United States' current obesity epidemic, it is crucial that wild SCP-081 be eradicated. The exposure that would result from a wide-scale epidemic would be disastrous to successful containment efforts. Dr. Unknown. Addendum 081-4. During testing, it has been discovered that people who have diabetes have a natural immunity to SCP-081. This has not helped in the development of a treatment for the virus, and it remains incurable. Wild infections data expunged and an alternate cause of death provided. Addendum 081-5. It was discovered by Agent Unknown that SCP-081 can spread by exposure to the ashes of a deceased victim. Containment and epidemic contingency protocols are being amended, and emergency services personnel who responded to Ms. Unknown's call have been detained for evaluation. Dr. Unknown. Item number, SCP-082. Name, Fernand the Cannibal. Object Class, Euclid. Description, SCP-082 is genetically human, however, through some process, either chemical, hormonal, cancerous, or supernatural, SCP-082 has grown to giant proportions. Approximately 2.4 meters tall, around 8 feet, and weighing over 310 kilograms, about 700 pounds, SCP-082's physical characteristics are grossly disproportional. It has a slightly pointed balding head, a large rounded chin and jaw, a bulbous nose, and dark sunken eyes. Subject is both overweight and possesses a great amount of muscle mass. Forearms are muscular and dangerous, with a circumference of about 71 centimeters, about 28 in. The breadth of the subject's fist is nearly 30 centimeters along the knuckles, almost 12 in. Though feet are large, they are small in proportion to subject's body, men's size 14 US. Subject's skin is tanned dark and overall physical appearance is compounded by numerous scars, the results of years of attempts at suppression and containment. Most X-rays have been difficult to interpret because of the high density of its muscle tissue, but scans have revealed countless bullets and even several knife and sword blades lodged in SCP-082's flesh. SCP-082 refers to itself as Fernand and speaks fluent French and heavily accented English. When it speaks, it does so through enormous, clenched teeth. SCP-082 only parts teeth to eat food and to sing. Subject will sing songs of its own pleasing, ranging from forgotten Victorian-era bar songs to modern classical, typically while cooking and eating. SCP-082 does not comb the hair on the sides of its head, but does cut it, and shaves with a large butcher knife originally provided for food preparation. It should be noted that even facial hair is exaggerated, a single strand being as thick as a millimeter, similar in thickness and appearance to graphite of a mechanical pencil. Occasionally, SCP-082 will clench its teeth so hard that the gums bleed, but it is not known why. This is considered normal. The demeanor of SCP-082 is very amicable and carefree. SCP-082 has accrued a wide wardrobe over its time of incarceration, and it enjoys dressing up in many different fashions, including formal wear, military uniform, as a clown, and in women's clothing. New pieces should be made available upon request. Subject often attempts to joke and is usually polite to personnel, often inviting them to dinner. However, visiting personnel should be aware that at any moment, SCP-082 is capable of attacking and voraciously eating others. Subject will often apologize for its lack of manners for interrupting someone's conversation by devouring their head while making a mess of his quarters. SCP-082's jaw is strong enough to crack bone, and it seems to enjoy skulls. Attacks are seemingly at random with no motivation. Whether or not subject has recently eaten has no effect on this cannibalistic hunger. SCP-082 is incapable of differentiating fact from fiction when he reads it or watches television/films. On several occasions, SCP-082 has expressed a great desire to meet his favorite person, Hannibal Lecter, and subject will believe that all television programming is some form of reality television. Though subject has shown heightened intelligence in the form of memory and puzzle solving, the concepts of parody, satire, and fiction are beyond its understanding. SCP-082 apparently understands the concept of lying, has shown to know when others are blatantly lying, and generally tells obvious falsehoods when asked about its past. According to SCP-082, he is a vampire, a homunculus, Big Bird, Andre the Giant, Napoleon, Obelix, sidekick of Asterix, Dr. Bright, the Hulk, Alexander the Great, Captain Hook, Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster. When questioned about these lies, he gives the excuse, "But I only lie when it's through my teeth." Special Containment Procedures, enlarged living quarters located at Armed Biocontainment Area 14 have been appropriated for the suppression and appeasement of SCP-082. While standard weapons have little effect in policing SCP-082, cooperation is easily attained through a charade. Subject is currently under the impression that it has been made the King of France and that its containment area is actually a grand palace designed for its protection. All interacting personnel are to be made aware of this charade and are ordered to follow the ruse. Housekeeping personnel are to be Class D personnel only. Guards tasked with the containment of SCP-082 are to be given Level 2 clearance, but are instructed to refrain from interacting directly with SCP-082. Item Number, SCP-083. Name, an abandoned row home. Object Class, Euclid. Description, SCP-083 appears to be an uninhabited, two-story row house in a general state of disrepair, with an interior of approximately 366 square meters. It is located in the unknown block of unknown. The deed and property tax records for the address are missing after unknown. The last known persons to reside at the address were the unknown family, but data expunged. Until acquisition by the Foundation, the property was the reputed office for local narcotics dealers who gained entry to the structure through a front window, since the locking mechanisms on both the front and back doors were corroded and frozen shut. SCP-083 first came to the Foundation's attention on unknown, when an altercation outside the building resulted in the front door being kicked in by data expunged. Those who entered through the door of SCP-083, Group A, allegedly found themselves inside a fully furnished and well-maintained home with functioning electricity and a fully stocked kitchen whose appliances and decor appeared to be from the early 20th century. Personnel who entered through the windows, Group B, described the interior as dark and dilapidated, corresponding to the view through the windows. Personnel in Group A also reported that they couldn't see, hear, or find any members of Group B inside the house or of anyone else besides themselves. Group B observed that members of Group A seemed to vanish into thin air upon crossing the door's threshold. Both groups inside the property not only described very different living conditions, but their descriptions didn't even correspond to the same floor plan. Their descriptions matched only in the relative position of the windows, since both groups saw the same street view. Personnel outside the house, however, reported only seeing members of Group B. These observations were repeatedly tested and confirmed by staff, with the additional finding that the rear door of SCP-083 also leads to the furnished interior. Any non-conventional entry, i.e., windows, holes in the roof, down the chimney, etc., leads to the dilapidated interior, and persons inside the different interiors are unable to detect each other's presence, although they both register on standard spectral imaging equipment, so long as said equipment is outside SCP-083. It was also discovered that the furnished interior is not static. The floor plan of SCP-083 apparently changes, with a different layout and different numbers and kinds of rooms manifesting. See document number 083A. No clear pattern or set interval has been observed in the rearrangement of the interior of SCP-083, but the phenomenon has never been directly observed or experienced by personnel while inside SCP-083. See Summary of Experiment 083-03, listed as document number 083C. So long as a human presence exists inside, the floor plan seems to remain stable. Although the furnished interior appears to be well maintained, no inhabitants or custodians have ever been detected. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-083 is to be kept under constant video surveillance, with at least one Level 3 staff member on call at all times to respond to security breaches. Entrance to SCP-083 is permissible to Level 1 and 2 personnel with proper clearances, provided they wear a tracking device while inside. Item Number: SCP-084. Name: Static Tower. Object Class: Euclid. Description: SCP-084 appears to be a large radio tower positioned in the center of a large, open field with two small outbuildings. Direct observation and sample collection from SCP-084 is impossible, due to the effect that is emitted around/from SCP-084. SCP-084 appears to emit a form of wave or radiation that has a detrimental effect on local spacetime/reality. The most pronounced aspect of this is the alteration of local space within the active area of SCP-084. Externally, the active area forms a rough dome shape of 200 meters in diameter. SCP-084 appears inside this area at random points, appearing to jump at random times, sometimes even appearing in multiple locations at once inside the active area. Internally, the space appears to be unlimited, with SCP-084 at the center. SCP-084 is impossible to reach due to the emitted effect. Attempts to approach SCP-084 within the active area have returned the observation that SCP-084 retains its relative position on the horizon, even after 3 months and 12 days of dedicated, direct travel both by vehicle and on foot. Termination tests have proved impossible, as no means of destruction are capable of physically reaching SCP-084, even when entered from outside the active area. Local space will also distort periodically. This will cause relative distances to randomly extend or contract in a flicker, causing buildings or objects to suddenly jump thousands of meters away, or rush up to other points, sometimes even causing overlaps. These overlaps have a markedly detrimental effect on living tissue. The town of Unknown is assumed to have been situated in or around the original manifestation of the active area. This town is no longer observable from outside the active area, appearing only once inside the active area. Unknown has maintained the same population, 343 humans, for the duration of its encapsulation. Births appear to be impossible, along with normal aging patterns. Suicide and/or homicide appear to be circumvented by the area of effect, with dead subjects flickering and appearing alive and unharmed several seconds after death. There are also reports of events rewinding, causing things like mortal wounds to visibly freeze and close. Subjects appear to exhibit many events of inconsistent space-time, as do most structures. For detailed observations, see Log 084A4. Electronic devices and recording equipment do not function correctly in or around the active area. Subjects report bizarre or unsettling transmissions from video and audio recording and playback devices. This acts to totally isolate Unknown from the outside world, precluding any need for Foundation-enacted containment. It also appears impossible to leave the active area after a random period of time. One subject from Unknown, found on the grass plain, see Log 084A4, reported he had been traveling for 6 years. He was found approximately 400 meters from Unknown city limits. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-084 is currently under a full non-interaction order until the full extent of the emission waves has been evaluated. For detailed documentation on general FNI orders, see Document XRG 1182. For detailed documentation on FNI orders in relation to SCP-084, see Document XRG 1208A. A continuous surveillance watch is to be maintained around the active area of SCP-084, with the primary objective of civilian misdirection and external surveillance. With no major roads, trails, or other travel routes nearby, any civilians encountered approaching SCP-084 are to be deemed suspect and detained for evaluation. Under no circumstances are any Foundation or civilian personnel allowed into the active area of SCP-084, except with express vocal and written permission of no fewer than 2 members of O5 Command. Sentries are to maintain their posted position with line-of-sight contact checks on fellow sentries, in conjunction with compass and landmark checking. All reference points should be well outside the active area of SCP-084. Should any sentry fail to report in via vocal roll call, full recall orders will be issued to all sentries, and containment will be re-evaluated by special response teams. In the event of active area fluctuation, full recall orders are to be assumed by all active sentries, followed by appropriate action. No form of radio, GPS, television, cell phone, video camera, still picture camera, or any other recording or electronic media devices are permitted within 100 meters of the active area around SCP-084. Civilians found with such devices within this area are to have said devices confiscated and destroyed immediately. Any recordings collected data expunged. Item number, SCP-085. Name, hand-drawn Cassie. Object class, safe. Description, SCP-085 is the result of an experiment conducted between SCP-067 and SCP-914. Using SCP-067, test subject 1101F drew a single female figure, about 15 cm, 6 in height and 3.8 cm, 1.5 in wide, in summer dress with long hair pulled back into a ponytail, with the name Cassandra written underneath. Drive expunged proposed using SCP-914 on various settings on images created by SCP-067, using the fine setting. The Cassandra sketch was transmuted into her present form, a sentient black and white animated young woman drawn in clean strokes. Further attempts to duplicate this result have been unsuccessful. SCP-085 prefers to be called Cassie. She is completely sentient and, as of an unknown date, aware of her 2D form and her limitations in a three-dimensional world. Although her voice is inaudible, she has learned to communicate with SCP Foundation personnel through sign language and writing. SCP-085 may be communicated with by writing text on the paper she exists on. Personnel report that she is amicable and motivated, albeit lonely. SCP-085 can interact with any drawn object on the same page as if it were real. For example, she is able to wear drawn clothing, drive sketched cars, and drink painted beverages. Except for animals and people, any drawn object becomes animated when in contact with SCP-085, but immediately ceases and holds position once out of contact. Artwork initially depicted as in motion such as ocean waves and swaying trees animate to an equilibrium state and stay at rest until acted upon by SCP-085. SCP-085 has also demonstrated the ability to transfer from one sheet or image to another, as long as the two are flush. In the event SCP-085 enters a picture that does not support drawn objects, such as a repeating pattern, the picture is converted to a background image. SCP-085 perceives the picture as an endless plane of the image drawn upon it. At the present time, SCP-085 can only exist upon paper or canvas surfaces. SCP-085 cannot transfer onto photos, cardboard, glass, or parchment. When entering other pieces of art, SCP-085 takes on the artistic style of her new environment, whether it be a comic book, an oil painting, watercolor, or charcoal sketching. Note: in comic form, her voice is visible as thought and voice bubbles around her head in typical comic fashion, and as she moves between panels the perspective and her relative size are altered appropriately. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-085 is to be contained in a single chalk white bond drawing pad in a secure containment facility. Supervised contact with SCP-085 is unrestricted to all personnel with Level 2 access. All personnel coming into contact with SCP-085 are subject to searches and random psychoanalysis upon entering or leaving the containment area. Absolutely no paper or canvas media are allowed to exit SCP-085's containment room. Any paper trash must be disposed of by incineration after careful inspection. Paper and art supplies are to be brought in only by authorized personnel. In case of fire, flames are smothered using a rapid atmospheric replacement and CO2 dumping system. Personnel are advised to quickly secure an oxygen mask and tank from the wall at the first sign of smoke or fire to prevent asphyxiation, as this procedure cannot be halted until all fires are suppressed.